This is a movie that only listens to the music. You can know the name of the love movie. Since its release in 1990, it has been recognized as a love classic worldwide. Sam and Molly were originally a loving couple, living a love life that everyone envies. But on that very night, after watching the movie to go home, but suddenly they were robbed. But just as Sam was trying to get rid of the money, the robber suddenly slapped Molly in the face. Sam suddenly exploded, immediately wrestled with him. However, while they were struggling, gunshots suddenly rang out and the robber fled in fear. Sam also immediately chased after him, but he thought Molly was still in the same place, so he rushed back. But as soon as he turned around, he saw the scene in front of him. Sam looked at all this in disbelief. He tried to touch his own body, but his hand went straight through. He tried to find someone to ask for help, but no one could see him. Just then, a holy light from the sky shone on Sam's body, and this was the passage that would lead him to heaven.
Sam, don't you leave me, Sam, hold on.
Hearing his girlfriend's heartbreaking cry, Sam could not bear to leave like this. He looked at the holy light in the sky, then he ignored the call to heaven. A few days later, Sam attended his own funeral, but no one could see him until he saw a woman greet him and walked into the tombstone. Sam was then convinced he was dead. In the room, Molly was alone, talking to herself, lost in the grief of losing Sam. Sam wanted to go up and comfort her, but he knew in his heart there was nothing he could do. The next day, at the urging of Sam's best friend Carl, Molly agreed to go out for a walk, but soon after they left, a strange man opened the door. But when Sam saw his face, he was shocked. This is not the robber who killed him that night. It was then that Sam realized his death may not have been an accident, and the robber seemed to be looking for something. Sam tried to stop him, but he swung his fist again and again. It was like his fist was hitting the air. It went straight through the robber's body. In the room, Sam swung his fist again and again, trying to stop the thief, but with each attack, the fist went straight through the robber's body. Just as he was rummaging through the cupboard looking for something, Molly came back. Sam tried desperately to stop him, but Molly couldn't feel him at all. Molly was changing her clothes. The robber's eyes grew evil. Sam hurriedly yelled to the psychic cat. The cat jumped on his face and scratched him, and the robbers flee in terror. Sam leapt at the door. He also managed to get through the door, then followed the robber all the way to the subway. But it was here he was targeted by one of his own kind. He grabbed Sam by the neck and threw him out of the car. It was clear that Sam was no match for him, but more than that, right now he was more worried about Molly's safety. So Sam found a local godmother. When the godmother called Molly, when she told Sam the situation, Molly thought she was a fraud and hung up. The godmother had to come to Molly's house to find her. After she told her a lot of private things about Sam and herself, Molly finally came downstairs to meet the diva. In the restaurant, she said,
"What are you doing? What do you think you're doing to me?"
Hey, look, if you think I come all the way down here for my help, you're out of your mind.
Sam's dead.
Right then and there, Sam had the diva say, "My heart is still." Molly was frozen in place, because Sam never said "I love you" to Molly before he died. He always used the words "my heart remains" to express Molly's love for her. And at that moment, Molly finally believed in the existence of Sam's ghost. At night, Molly told Sam's best friend Carl about it. Obviously, Carl did not believe in such nonsense, but Carl's next few words, but Sam found a clue, so he followed Carl all the way. What he didn't expect was that Carl knew the robbers. He soon learned from their conversation that Carl is the one behind the crime, because he wanted to get his hands on the password to the $4 million in Sam's bank account. At this moment, Sam was furious. He threw a punch at Carl, but he couldn't even touch his opponent's body. But what he didn't expect was Carl not only called for someone to kill him, he came to Molly's house at night. Looking at Molly's sadness, Carl tried to take advantage of the situation. And at this point, Sam was simply furious. He jumped on their bodies. Seeing the photo fall to the ground, Molly also instantly awake. Urgently, she drove Carl away, and Sam was furious as hell. Carl had not only killed him, but also to hit his lover's idea. So he poked his head into the subway, began to scan one by one to find the evil ghost before, and the evil ghost saw Sam was very angry. But this time, no matter how hard he hit Sam did not move and stood still. For Molly to get revenge, he was determined to learn to control objects with him. After listening to Sam's story, he began to train Sam to move objects.
Your gun, like I told you.
absolute faith. Sam finally learned to control objects. At night, Sam planned to ask the godmother to help him deliver a message to Molly, but to his surprise, he ran into the robber who was chasing after the godmother, and he took the opportunity to close the door. Then all the items in the room began to fly around, and the frightened robber, he was also hit by an oncoming car and fell to the ground. Then he saw his dead self out of his body. In the evening, Sam and the godmother went to see Molly again, but this time she refused to open the door. It turns out that during the day she went to the police, and the police said the witch is a liar, and they came up with a long list of her criminal record. Man holds up a coin in front of his lover's finger, but what the woman saw was only a coin. She slowly held the coin in her hand. This one Molly realized her dead lover had been by her side. Then, with the permission of the goddess, Sam became one with her. Godmother rushed to escape from the window with Molly, and Carl, sensing that something was wrong, immediately opened the door. Sam tried to stop it, but he had just possessed the diva, has consumed too much of his psychic power. His attack couldn't even touch Carl. Soon Carl grabbed Molly, then he put a gun to Molly's head, threatening Sam to hand over the money. And Sam, who had regained some of his psychic powers, also took the opportunity to shoot off the gun. Carl tried to fight back. Sam knocked him to the ground in a group. The frightened Carl tried to escape, but he did not want to kill himself. The shaking iron hook accidentally broke the glass, and so he killed himself. The next moment Carl's soul left his body. He looked at Sam in disbelief. Then several black shadows appeared, dragged him straight to hell. Just at that moment, a holy light appeared above Sam's head again, and Molly and the godmother also saw Sam at this moment. After years of rewatching this movie, I am still deeply moved. Maybe this is the so-called classic.